For me, this is about doing not what's fashionable, but doing what's rational. It's fashionable to say, let's do all things. Let's solve all the world's problems. And it's a great thing to say. Unfortunately, it's not rational. We have limited resources. And it's worse than that. When we say we want to do everything, we're indeed deceiving ourselves, because we don't focus on everything. A couple big issues get the most airtime, the most attention, the most money. And I think one of the points is that time and again, the new research for Copenhagen Consensus have shown that we have the knowledge to do tremendous amount of good in each of the biggest world challenges. The hurdle is often getting the right resources to the right people. Copenhagen Consensus can help. This project, I hope, can give policymakers, democracies, philanthropists an assurance that the check they write out will actually do the most good possible. It can draw attention to the problems that we don't talk so much about, and it can help us focus on what the most rational solutions are to do right now. Let's talk about what will happen next week. We have one really big question. If we had, say, an extra $75 billion to put to good use, which problems should we solve first? That will be the crucial topic that we'll try to address this week. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to be looking at 10 big world challenges. Here are the 10 challenges. Air pollution, for instance, kills 2.5 million people each year. Conflicts plunges countries into decades of misery. Diseases, I'll get back to that in a little while. Education, global warming, malnutrition and hunger, sanitation and water, subsidies and trade, terrorism, women and development. All of these areas clearly demand our attention. We could achieve a lot of good in all of these areas. But with limited resources, where can we do the most and least good? Copenhagen Consensus is not a conference which talks about world problems. No, it talks about solutions. Thinking about problems alone isn't particularly helpful. Imagine, and there's a reason why, when you go to the doctor, he or she doesn't just tell you what's wrong with you, but especially focuses on what are the best treatments to deal with your problems. And that's the same thing with the Copenhagen Consensus. When we answer the question where we can achieve the most good, we need to talk about the best treatments to those problems. Unfortunately, that gets a little more complicated. Here's a few of those examples. Again, when we look at air pollution, we could possibly look at better stoves to deal with the rampant indoor air pollution in many third world countries. When we talk about conflicts, many of the conflicts are recurring conflicts where we know that there is a peace treaty. Maybe we could deploy UN military peacekeeping forces to alleviate the possibility of readdressing conflict. Diseases, again, I'll come back to. And as you can see, there are solutions to all of these problems. They're great solutions. But the question is, where can we do the most good? Well, we've actually asked some of the top researchers in all of these different areas to tell us what are the best things to do. Let's zoom in on just one challenge as an example. Let's look at disease. Dr. Dean Jameson is an economist known around the world for his work on health economics and for setting priorities for the World Health Organization. He led 2 other researchers in an examination of what we can do in the disease area. They point out that in some parts of the world, life expectancies are actually getting shorter. We can do something about that. They present the latest knowledge on the big health problems, and then they outline 7 solutions, proposed solutions. Let's take a look at 3 of these. They point out that focusing on tuberculosis should be a top priority. They say that in this area, we need to combine anti-tuberculosis drugs with improved case identification. Spending $1 billion on tuberculosis treatment in a year would save 1 million lives. Good health lifts prosperity and lightens the burden on the health system, so the economic benefits are worth $30 billion. Or in other words, if we spend $1, we'll actually end up doing $30 of good in the area of tuberculosis. This is the cost-benefit ratio. This is what they enlighten us on. When we talk about heart disease, something we don't usually think about when we talk about third world issues, they point out that there's a strong case for cheap heart disease treatment drugs, which we use in rich countries, to be made available in poor countries. Heart disease is responsible for more than a quarter of deaths in poor countries. Spending $200 million could save 300,000 lives, or the benefits would be 25 times the investment. A third option, they show policymakers and democracies how we could do a lot more to prevent malaria very cheaply. $1 billion could buy more protection, mosquito bed nets, treatment for pregnant women, and indoor mosquito spraying. Again, for every dollar we spend, we would probably do about $20 worth of good. This week, Dr. Dean Jameson will come to the Copenhagen and present his findings to the expert panel. The expert panel will also hear from other prominent researchers who will be engaged just to critique the new research for this project. These prospective papers, authors have very carefully reviewed each of the research papers and will provide the experts with other ways of seeing the problem. The expert panel job is to engage with both groups of researchers. They'll come to their own conclusions about the merits of the proposed suggestions, and that's why I think we need such a high-powered group of world-class economists on our expert panel. The expert panel will, in a sense, discuss and debate all of the solutions to all of the challenges. They'll be weighing each solution they hear and comparing it to other options. After a week of deliberations, they will come out and produce a prioritized list. On Friday, we will present you with this list. It will rank solutions across all challenges. It will hopefully help politicians have a better understanding of what works the absolute best. It will show us the most and also the least cost-effective solution. The list will give policymakers, democracies, and philanthropists a better idea of how different projects compare with each other. They'll show us where we should be dedicating the world's scarce resources and what shouldn't be our top priority. But, and with the greatest respect to the expert panel, it's important that we don't leave this just to economists. That's why the Copenhagen Consensus Center, with the support of Denmark's foreign ministry, is bringing 80 young people from around the world to Denmark to take part in their own prioritization exercise, along with 300 students from the Copenhagen Business School. While the expert panel will meet behind closed doors this week, the young people will be the public face of Copenhagen Consensus. They will hear the same evidence that the expert panel hears. They'll be asked to make the same hard decisions, and they will produce their own prioritized list of best and worst investments that the planet could make. On Thursday, we'll discover their results, and the next day, we'll find the expert panel's prioritization. I'm also very excited by the partnership, as the Prime Minister mentioned, between the Copenhagen Consensus Youth Forum and Denmark's Africa Commission. This is a great example of how the Copenhagen Consensus ideas and results can be used in concrete ways. And at the end of the week, it'll be a privilege to host a group of senior-level government representatives from 20 developed and developing countries. The ministers and diplomats will conduct their own closed-door prioritization exercise. Lastly, I just want to say this is not the first Copenhagen Consensus. We're fortunate enough to draw on the experience of the Copenhagen Consensus 2004, as the Prime Minister mentioned, that set the first global priority exercise in the world. We also basing ourselves on 2 successful UN Copenhagen Consensuses, where we brought together some of the top UN ambassadors, including the UN ambassadors for China, India, and the US. And we're also very fortunate to base ourselves in the Consulta de San Jose, the Copenhagen Consensus for Latin America and the Caribbean, conducted together with the Inter-American Development Bank. I think what we have learned from all of these experiences is that an informed ranking of solutions to the world's big problems is possible. And I'm very excited and proud that an exceptional group of people are getting together in Denmark this week to grapple with some of the world's biggest problems. It's easy and fashionable to say that we should do everything. But this week is about not doing what's fashionable, but focusing on what's rational. Thank you very much.